It's like, I will build a house how I want it to be, somewhere in the middle of nowhere, where I like it to be, and then I say, oh, you come and live there. We should build around communities and for the community, and not like imposing them, because that's why most of those platforms and those virtual worlds are empty, because people, they don't feel like, okay, they're curious at first, but then it's boring, doesn't talk to them.
Yeah, but speaking of this, no, like it's boring, it doesn't talk to them, no, I'm very interested about this question from a user perspective, from a consumer perspective, no, because especially nowadays, no, like when we think of branding, when we think of marketing, no, I hope I'm answering this question like from the intention of the person that made this question, but like it's more and more becoming more about values, no? About what your brand or company represents, no? Like what is the added value that you are contributing to the world to make the world a better place, right? So I mean, this is a place of communities, right? I mean, or wars, exactly. Wars, you know, like it depends on your intention. Exactly. Because especially now, like we have all the tools in the world to be able to talk properly online, to be able to advertise ourselves online, you know? I mean, ChatGPT now is writing all the text for us, you know? So, I mean, there's this doubt, no, in people's minds already, like, is this really a person behind this, you know? Is it really, what is the intention, you know, that of this company or person, like, what am I being sold really, or what, you know? So I think communities are really a chance, you know, for people to kind of get engaged. The same way that we read the back label of a product that we buy in the supermarket, no? That we say, okay, I want to know where my food is coming from, right? I want to know what is in my food, you know, because I want to live a healthy lifestyle, right? So, I mean, companies and like institutions and professionals, you know, like we're all like going into that direction, right?
Yes,
it's like, who are we, you know, as...
But that's the thing, that's, for instance, if we look just at Europe, I mean, to my opinion, personally, I think Europe has never been that dispersed as it is today, because most of the time it's national values or interests that are more important than the interest of all. And we see that in terms of legislation, we see that in terms of taxes, of social security, but also in terms of like what are the possibilities for people. So, and that's also a difficulty to cope with that, because it puts us behind often, and not just from a technological point of view, but also from a value point of view. What is, for instance, what is good for me as a value can be total opposite in another country or another continent. If, for instance, by the way, if you go to Japan, they don't. It's very impolite to say no.
Okay,
Japanese won't say no. They will say like,
it's complicated.
but, or they will make you wait. Whereas, with that same behavior would be very impolite in Western Europe, and then you have so many other cultures. So how do we define that? Because we have this technology that is global, where you will, when you grow up before internet, for those who were already there, well, your world was your village, and you had your friends, and you had a phone, so you could call them, but only when you were home, and the other person as well. But now the community has become international. You're able to talk with people other side of the world, but you don't even know your neighbors anymore. And those are a lot of elements that play for the community as such.
Absolutely,
that
yes.
becomes difficult in like, okay, what does my community want?
I think this is a really important point, and I think it fits so well with the next question that we have in the chat. That is, what are your recommendations for establishing a local community? And I think here we have such a diversity of community, and also based on a local, like also thinking of you, Andres, and maybe you have maybe some recommendations for that.
Just so complicated. It depends what it means local for the person. So as soon as you can share values and share point of views with the person, with different people, you're going to be able to build together. So one of the tools, or the main tools that we are trying to implement inside is like safe spaces, as you were saying, so where you can feel that you can express whatever you think in a respectful way. So it would be very important, so you can always express yourself. There are more and more often like inclusion practices in terms of changing your pronouns, describing yourself. So we can also like our community, being in a community is not with a lot of labels. It's like, it depends whatever you like. So if you really want to be very inclusive and trying to find ways that you can create these safe spaces, like nowadays, like in Latin America as well, and in States, it's very common to say the ancestral land of the community was living there before the colonization. So there's a lot of practices that we can just try to dig in to try to fit, because in Europe it would make no much sense, for example, but a lot of them they are. So if we can create this safe space, I think is the most important.
Thank you so much. And I think that's such an important point, because of local community. Like we are all like also local communities, and then also like, as you said, like I think your example with building a house, it's really like it's like amazing example, because also for me, coming from architecture, like always thinking about this static thing, but a community is never static. Like it's always transforming the community. So I think it's also so nice that at the beginning we talk about what was the beginning of the community and how you came with your vision, because it will not be 100% what is now, but it's also not reflecting 100% what it will be in the next 10 years. And this is also what is beautiful about it, because the people, like it's not about just one person which is starting the community, but it's also about like everyone who is joining the community, bringing you in this journey, and then it's transforming. And I think from this, because we have such a huge community with pARty Vibe, there is a question actually for you, Brenda, which is how can you handle 200K people in your community? And is it easy to work with artists?
They're my favorite. We're all artists.
Yeah.
No, that's so funny. I mean, I don't know all 200K personally. I would love to. I would love to.
Disappointed.
We do have like our handful. This is why I'm building my like little tiny communities, because there are the handful of people that I do recognize like on the daily who is very engaging, who email a lot, who come to all of our events, networking, everything. So there are like a lot of handfuls of people. But this is why I want to start this local community or a local advocate program, so that it's not only my responsibility anymore, but using our community to build more community basically starting, you know, and in that way I can also oversee what is happening in their own local communities as well, and have like a bigger understanding of what's really going on, because it is such a big community, so it is hard to fully grasp how everything is going. And the interesting thing with the mentoring program, I didn't know that this was going to go this route, but the mentors and mentees are from all over the world, from Canada to the US to Europe, India, and we will actually have an exhibition at the end of the program in April, and all of them, or not all of them, but I hope most of them, are actually going to join here in Vienna, and they will actually meet.
Oh, wow.
So I love the way that you said, like, what do you mean by local community? Because local community can become people from all over the world coming together locally.
I think that's beautiful, because what does local mean? And
yeah,
I think that's the best example that we could have.
Yeah.
And are there any questions from the audience? Yeah.
So what's the difference between XR Vienna and Facebook, for example?
XR Vienna and Facebook. I hope there's a lot of differences between XR Vienna and Facebook.
Facebook doesn't exist anymore.
Facebook exists pretty much, and it has the communities and all the stuff that you're talking about. So what's the difference between what you're saying right now as a concept of communities and being able to express yourself and all that you can do in Facebook?
So,
what's the difference between that and Facebook?
We put a face to the knowledge. You know, we put a face to the knowledge, you know, meaning that on Facebook everybody has an opinion, you know, it's very easy to be behind a user or behind a screen and give an opinion, whether good or bad, you know. But I think, like, this is just my personal belief in my experience in 𝗫𝗏𝗏, you know, but sometimes there are a lot of things that you don't want to use Facebook for talking about, you know.
Yeah, but what's the difference?
Well, exactly. No, but I mean, the difference.
What do you want to achieve with the 𝗫𝗏𝗏 that's different from Facebook?
I mean, I would say if I explain it in my culinary terms, you know, in a way, what we want to grow is a bio community, you know, instead of something that is naturally produced, you know.
Bio community.
Yeah, meaning that we want to build something that is organically building, you know, by human connections, you know.
People do that in Facebook.
No.
Yeah, yes and no, you know. I mean, yeah, they do that on Facebook, but it's also...
They have the infrastructure to do it.
But the infrastructure is not the people. That's the thing. You can offer the infrastructure, but sometimes the infrastructure can play against you, because then you become comfortable in your own bubble of choosing what opinion you want to believe. You know,
okay,
and then you sectorize in this opinion. You never have someone that is contradicting you, like you do, you know. But usually, correct me if I'm wrong. You know, it's not always with the best intentions.
So you offer an infrastructure, and what else?
Sorry.
You offer the electronic, digital infrastructure to communicate with people, right?
I can tell you, for example, we offer mentorship. You know, we offer advice. Like, for example, if you're a student, for example, you're fresh out of the university, and you want to know how professionals are working in this field, you know, and yeah, for sure you can write on Facebook and you can ask, I'm a newbie here, you know, and everybody's going to tell you their experience. But in the end, it's not just what people say, it's who people are, you know, and I believe that social media in general is not always too clear, you know, in who the people are, you know, because you always have this manicured version of yourself.
Well, you said that when you're saying who we are, what people are, that's not a clear concept either. So I'm just asking for an exact definition of what do you want to achieve with 𝗫𝗏𝗏 that's different than what already exists.
What I want to achieve is for people to continue being human instead of depending on technology to interact.
We are human.
Can I ask something? Why are you here, not on Facebook?
Well, I mean, of course, we're not trying to replace one thing. It's an addition, not a replacement.
So I would like.
It's an addition, not a replacement.
But what does it add? That's what
So I will just say, like, from 𝗫𝗏𝗏𝗏's perspective, like, we do use Facebook still as a platform like Discord or anything else, so that people do have the opportunity to share their artworks or something else, or like give us some feedback or questions and communicate with other community members. But our platforms like 𝗫𝗏𝗏𝗏 and 𝗫𝗏𝗏𝗏 or other communities, basically what we're here for is to build stronger connections with different programs, connecting events and other ways. But we do use Facebook and other platforms also to communicate and connect.
We do.
I know,
But it's
I
different.
agree with you through Facebook.
Maybe
That's why I'm here.
I think Facebook is a platform, and a platform can be understood as a space. So they're giving you a space, and with this space you can do what you want. So it's not Facebook. It's not already giving you the community. You have to build it, and you can build different communities. And this is like saying also this room. It's also physical space. It's a platform, this room, in a physical world, but it's not the community. The community are then the people who are joining, they're meeting each other, and from my experience from 𝗫𝗏𝗏𝗏, we're building friendship. It's not only about the work, it's also an exchange on the same basis, where there is no hate, no ego, it's a different kind of community.
I'm sorry, but you
Facebook.
can find that also in many other different...
Yeah, of course, it's not. It's just a place where you can create...
Eye contact. You don't have on Facebook.
I'm sorry?
That's
Eye
right.
contact.
Contact?
Eye contact.
Sorry, XR is extended reality.
Yes.
You don't have eye contact in extended
𝗫𝗏𝗏𝗏 is also this, no?
Yes.
But I'm so sure
𝗫𝗏𝗏𝗏 is also
I'm
this.
Yes, of course, but you get this through other social medias. You can gather with people through Instagram or...
sorry, I'm not part of 𝗫𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, but I can see there is very three kind people trying to answer your very aggressive questions. And we could answer more interesting questions that just going around. It's a tool And it's a community, it's people, and it's not, forget about the tools and the technology, it's about being together, and there's very nice people trying to answer your question, and you're being very aggressive. So this is, and I think most of us are very comfortable with your attitude, not your questions.
Okay.
So I think we could better continue to understand, and maybe later you can discuss when everybody is a small, like respect everybody else's time.
All right. Sorry, you took me as aggressive. I didn't mean to.
No, but look, it's a very interesting question. You know, I think we can be talking here for 3 days about this. You know, because it's you have a point. You know, I mean, like just to summarize this question, if I may, you know, like a community is not a linear process either. You know, it's not like you don't use Facebook or you only have Facebook or social media in general. You know, and this replaces humans meeting in person at all, you know? Like, I can speak, like, I'm a domesticated introvert, you know? Sometimes I can spend 3 or 4 months without wanting to see anyone, and I just want to socialize online, you know? And that's totally valid, you know? But this depends so much on the person, you know? Some people don't want to spend socializing online because they need the human contact, you know?
But I don't mean to say Facebook as a digital-only media. Like I said,
online
people through Facebook, also physically. They find groups, they find communities where they identify with, and they meet. So my question is, what is the difference between this already existing platform and XR Vienna?
What do you think the difference is?
Well,
the added values. I'm curious.
I don't know, that's why I'm asking.
I have a question that maybe can also help us redirect the question that you are proposing. I think we are learning to translate everything we knew to be physical into digital representations of it. And as well as we in physical materiality, we had migration. People had places where they live, and they had families and bounds. We also have our houses, we also have centralized lands in digitality. So if you really want to talk about Facebook Facebook, I would say Facebook was a place that used to be centralizing our digital attention, and nowadays we are migrating. We are migrating to new founded cities, we are migrating to new platforms. It could be TikTok, it could, depending on your age, on your gender expression. So you think of it as your time you used to spend it on physical existence, but now we also are splitting this into our digital existence, right? And that is the difference between XR Vienna. XR Vienna is a new founded city, and Facebook is the old city where everyone was there. You know, it's gentrified. It's
right.
A lot of people still live there. You may even have an apartment there, and it has all of your data. You know, but you not only live there. You also migrate. You also go to different cities in the digitality.
Okay. So yeah, but there are other.
And my question. And my question. And my question is how, when we are building these new cities, these platforms that are congregating cities just as physical cities would, how do we make sure that when we do join these spaces, I personally don't think users is equal to community. I think we can have 1 million users. We don't have a 1 million people community. We have a lot of sub-communities. How do we keep in mind what this centralization actually means, both in physical and in digital? Because centralizing, for example, Google is one of the biggest big data. And they centralized so much of our digital life that they know most of, Google Maps, Google Calendar, Google Mail, Google. So how, when we create new platforms, how do you keep that in mind personally? Like, for example, Mike's LATAM. Mike's LATAM probably is going to be centralizing a lot of Latin American attention, right? But then we also need to be able to make sure that other cities arise, right? Yeah. Does it make sense?
Yeah. If I answer just the specific, as I don't know if you were in that part, this is important to avoid that. So we are using like the members specifically to try to centralize that. That's true. But in any case, it's difficult to make an order or not. It depends. To have a regional impact. and then we then go with by each member of each country have to reach the different communities, because again it's not one community, as you said, like several communities. So this is what we are trying to do in terms of humanly, in a human way to manage it. If we arrive to that numbers, I don't know. I'm not even thinking what we're gonna do in that way.
But you made a good point saying that yes, it's 200K users, but who's really the community? Because anyone can subscribe, anyone can join, and that's the numbers that we're seeing. But like, who's actually contributing? Who's engaging?
But in the end, for me, a good example of community, like for me personally, no, is TEDx. You know, I mean, you have like the TED community, no, and then you have TEDx that is more specific to each of the it's more regional, and then you have not only TEDx cities, no, but you also have TEDx universities, you have TEDx neighborhoods, you have, you know, so but it's all under the one philosophy that is technology, education, and design. No, I always forget what they did. So, you know. So in a way, like this is what if you ask me what the future of XR Vienna is, you know, I would like to see XR Vienna as maybe TEDx. You know, like maybe there's the essence of XR Vienna. You know, there's no ego, no shame. You know, like transcending boundaries. You know, like going, I don't know, it could be called Juanito. You know, like whatever the event. You know, but it lives up to this essence of being no ego, no shame. You know, and I think like this is a way kind of like to decentralize it, but still keep the identity of a community.
That's exactly what we do, for instance, at Euroimmersive. For me, what is important is that we reach people at their level, always. We talk with them at their level, and that's why, for instance, within Euroimmersive, we have the different groups per country, in which they can communicate if they like in their own language, if they feel better. But the thing is, what is community? For some people, community it's when you have something in common. It can be like going to church. It can be like I love a wine club. I don't know what. It's just like-minded people joining together to discuss or to feel acknowledged within who they are or what they like. And indeed, for instance, XR Vienna is, let's say, specifically for everybody within XR in Austria, in Vienna. So that's the difference. Whereas a Facebook or whatsoever, those are platforms and they reach all those people. But what is the added value? Well, if you're really interested in XR and you happen to live in Austria, well, then you can join XR Vienna. And if you feel like, well, I don't feel like joining a national organization because I feel more related to art, well, then you go to Artivive. Or you feel more like, oh, but I'm more Latin America, well, then you go over there. And if you really don't know where to go yet, then you come to Euroimmersive or Gadaverse.
I would just,
You said it very nice.
Or you go nowhere.
But what you just said about the TED, and going back to your question, is like a practice. So we can establish a practice that can be replicated, but also transformed locally. So it always have to answer the community needs. So we can propose something, but not always gonna work. It's something that will work talking this software. So it will not always work, and it will be changed, and only the community will need their needs. So basically, just propose something, try to keep in contact, and this is the only way to grow decentralized. That's what I think.
It's in fact, it's for the community, by the community, and it's always, it's never about us, it's about the community, about the people. And if tomorrow they say like, I don't care anymore, okay, then they're gone, they're gone. And if you don't evolve with their needs and their wants due to different kinds of generations or different interests or whatsoever, or different needs, well then at one point you will find yourself on your own, and you can have a community with you yourself and you. That's also a community. But yeah, I think in the end, it's always people.
In the end, I don't know if we have like time for more questions, but we're still going to hang out.
I think we can. I don't know if you have a
I have a question.
Yes.
Before we.
I also have one.
Yeah. Just a very short one. Before everybody at the end gets up, please stay seated because I would love to take a picture. I'm the picture woman. We will all be, taking the picture selfie-wise with all you guys. So that's it. A little request for those who like to.
Thank you. I am quite new here, and I really admire what you have done. And building a community, it's not easy. I am wondering, what were your first steps? Like, can you recall like having your first members of the community? Like, how did you actually start and kept growing?
So I didn't start our community, but I did a lot of research behind how to build it. And basically you have to first decide on your core values, and then you have to establish who your community is and who you want who co-aligns with your values. Then you kind of start building from there slowly. I don't know what your community is specifically. There is an amazing group called CMX, which is basically a community for community managers. You can literally, so you can join. They have a Slack channel, they have everything, and you can go to them with any sort of question about how to build from literally the bottom up. So they're a very good place to go for all of that as well.
And how did you get your first members? Or
sorry? Well, so I wasn't there when I got my first members, but maybe Sergio wants to say something about this.
I think it's very important to listen. So the first things that we did was we had automations based on how people are using the tool, where we had emails that looked like emails going out with mistakes in it, and all the emails were going out from my email address. So whenever a user would answer, it would come directly into my inbox, having the questions, and there was then answering, and most of the people was like, oh, the CEO is answering. And then we built a relationship, and that was very important at the beginning to know it's like which questions do they have, what they want to learn, which are the pain points, which are actually the things that we are solving. And building on that, we started to have a dialogue.
And actually, I would like to add something to that. Vulnerability. Sometimes I had the opposite experience of you guys because you did it so professionally, I mean, for us it was like, who else is out there? What do they know? Let's meet, like this, Like we just put a meetup site, and it's like, okay, we are interested in VR, back then it was just VR, Like maybe you too, maybe you're working on this, maybe you want to tackle bigger projects. Let's meet and talk about it, So the first time we were like, I don't know, like 20 people, and now we're 1,200 members, like that join depending on the topic, So we failed many times, There's no formula to make this right, It's you always have this fear. I'm honest with you. You always have this fear. Like you put your 200% on each of the events. All the time on your free time. Because you're doing it on the side always. At the same time, you always have this fear. Imposter syndrome is always there. At the same time, you can never avoid bad comments. You can never avoid it. You can never avoid people saying like, what they are doing it all wrong. And this is going back to what all the speakers said. In the end, what's important is to stay true to your values. Because if someone criticizes your value, you don't care. Because this is who you are. So just curiosity, care, compassion, and collaboration. Forces.
Yeah, empathy.
That's it.
Thank you. We have our last question.
Yeah.
There.
This is probably more directed to Isabel.
Okay.
Because you seem the most no pun intended, immersed in it. But I'm curious, where are we in the PU right now? where are we legislation-wise when it comes to VR? And is there a, I mean, everybody feel free to join in. And also, is there a way, as an individual, is there a way to contribute to that? Are there any, is there a way to contribute to that?
Yeah. So where are we today in Europe? Not very far, to be very honest. Yes, we have the European Union, and yes, we have GDPR, but the thing is that the execution of those laws depends on the nations, on the countries. Because if in one country the legislation is more strict, then their legislation prevails. If in a country their legislation is less strict, then the European legislation prevails. But to execute it, for instance, GDPR, if tomorrow you find out that some people abused information, in order to bring it up there, well, I guess you need a lot of patience, money to pay a lawyer, to maybe have a result. And then we're talking about the EU being 27 countries, half of the continent. So that's just an example of where you can imagine we are. Where we just had the paper made for the European Commission, again, the feVR Coalition, in which participated not only like the production, but also people like XR, Emerging Technologies departments of going from IKEA to healthcare to all the industries. And the purpose is that that will continue. But what we see a lot with those studies is that there is no blueprint, no framework to determine all these elements, the matrix, the KPIs, and so on. So you can't really compare. There were no real statistics today. So that's something that we're working on with Euroimmersive, and in order with the industry to create like a blueprint, so that whatever study will be done in the future, hopefully that's our aim, that they will all use the same definitions, not about the M word, we don't define that. But for instance, if in one country we talk about the annual revenue, what does that mean in another country in Europe? Because according to legislation and accountancy rules and so on, it's different. So that is something we're working on. And of course, I think at this point in time, we're too early to have like all the people already contribute to it, because we're still at the stage of, let's say, maybe we're just entering the stage of the BlackBerry, going from the Nokia towards yeah. So that stage, and there are multiple reasons for that. So what is important in order to something to grow and to become mainstream, so that people can contribute and everything, is that we first need to create awareness of something. Once people are aware that something exists, they can adopt it. Once they adopt something new, they can adapt to it, to in the end embrace it. And we're still at that stage of creating awareness. We're talking now about virtual reality, metaverse, and so on. I said it again, sorry. Yeah. One cookie less for me. The thing is that even in Europe today, there are still so many places that don't even have internet connection. So if you want people to participate, contribute, and everything, we're talking about a technology that most people don't even have access to. And you don't have to go very far. For instance, in the south of Italy, there are still people that don't have internet, schools that don't even have computers. And so I'm not even talking about like a third world country or poor people, or it's just there's nothing. So I would love for all people to contribute, and there are think tanks and studies that are looking at the impact on users. Yesterday I was in Paris, and they're working on those kind of studies about the digital and the future virtual impact on users. But we're still like at the dawn of all these things. So even if today you would do a study about the impact of virtual reality on users, I guess you won't have a lot of the population to answer. I would love one day that changes, but that's where we are today. And I think the real contribution of everybody is taking responsibility, not just for now, for this generation, but for the generations to come. And in that sense, thinking about the bigger picture and not just our own interests. I think that is the main contribution.
Thank you. Just a quick one. You said this was VR/AR coalition.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the VR/AR coalition.
We can share the report.
Perfect.
Yeah. It's you can find it on the website of the European Union, and the study has been done by 𝗫𝗥𝗩𝗶𝗲. 𝗫𝗥𝗩𝗶𝗲 is the study agency that is performing all the studies for the Commission, so it's not biased, such as some study offices are since a few months working closely together or collaborating with some of the gamam companies. So I'm not saying they're not doing a good job, but 𝗫𝗥𝗩𝗶𝗲 in that sense is like strictly neutral, so more objective, to my opinion. So.
Thank you so much, everybody, for the questions.
Gracias.
Muchas gracias.
Don't move yet. Don't move yet.
The selfie.
Yeah.
Selfie.
Okay.
There, no. Like here.
No, porque está parada.
Okay. Are we all on it? Wait.
I don't know.
Okay. And now we all do, what do you say in Austria?
Yeah.
My sunshine.
Yeah! Great, thank you.
Fireside chat has come to an end. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for your questions and for being here. And we would like to thank two special people like Women in Immersive Tech and 𝗪𝗪, our partners for this event. Thank you so much for your support, for having us here. Also, thank you so much for our teams at Frisch and Iberia for powering this event, for us to have the time to be able to organize it. And of course, thank you all for being here and for making XR Vienna what it is. And thank you, speakers, of course. It's wonderful to have you here and that you travel all this way to come here.
That's what we do for the community. Thank you so much. Especially for such amazing people over here.
And now we would like to invite you to have some blue wine and cookies. We spent 3 days baking the cookies and making the decoration of the cookies. So please, Uli as well was making the cookies. Uli's right there, very quiet.
Now people know why we're actually here.
Yeah, seriously. Thank you guys. Thank you so much.
I will send you the pictures and then you can put it on the website and so on.
Yeah, thank you so much.